Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Gopi Janda Bhallava Giribharadhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Kunja Vihari Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajacharya Ashtotara Shatashishimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajacharya Ashtotara Shatashishimad His Divine Grace Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Garantara Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Nitai Gaura Premanandi. Oh, glories to the assembled devotees. Oh, glories to the assembled devotees. Oh, glories to the assembled devotees. Oh, glories to Shishiguru and Shigoranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, the Status Quo, Chapter 20. The rainy season and the atom in Vrindavan. Text number 14 and 15. Text number 14. Saridbhi sangata shindus chukshobha shwanor swasanor miman apakwa yoginas chitam kamaktangu najukjatha. Translation. Can you tell them to be quiet? Where the rivers joined the ocean, it became agitated. Its waves blown about by the wind, just as the minds of an immature yogi becomes agitated because he is still tainted by lust and attached to the objects of sense gratification. Text number 15. Girajo varsadharabhir Hanyamana nabibyuthu. Hanyamana nabiyatu. Abhibhujamanabyas abhibhujamanabyas no abhibhujamanavyasanair yata doksha yachetasa girajo varshadharabhir hanyamana nabivyatu abhibhujamanavyasanair yatta dosha yachetasa girajo varshadharabhir hanyamana nabivyatu abhibhujamanavyasanair yata doksha yachetasa. Please chant. Abhibhujamanavyasanair yata doksha yachetasa girajaha. The mountains varshadharabhi, by the rain-bearing clouds. Hanyamanaha, being struck. Navidyathu, did not shake. Abhibhujamanaha, being attacked. Vyashanai, by dangers. Yatha, as. Adokshaya chetasa, those whose minds are absorbed in the Supreme Lord. Translation and purport by the disciples of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Just as devotees whose minds are absorbed in the personality of Godhead remain peaceful even when attacked by all sorts of dangers, the mountains in the rainy seasons were not at all disturbed by the repeated striking of the rain-bearing clouds. Purport. When splashed by torrents of rains, the mountains are not shaken. Rather, they are cleansed of dirt and become resplendent and beautiful. Similarly, an advanced devotee of the Supreme Lord is not shaken from his devotional program by disturbing conditions, which instead cleanses his heart of the law of the dust of attachment to this world. Thus, the devotee becomes beautiful and resplendent by tolerating difficult conditions. In fact, a devotee accepts all reverses in life as the mercy of Lord Krishna, realizing that all suffering is due to the sufferer's own previous misdeeds. So the two verses together again. Where the river joined the ocean, it became agitated, its waves blown about by the wind, just as the mind of an immature yogi becomes agitated because it is still tainted by lust and attached to the objects of sense gratification. Just as devotees whose minds are absorbed in the personality of Godhead remain peaceful even when attacked by all sorts of dangers, the mountains in the rainy seasons were not at all disturbed by the repeated striking of the rain-bearing clouds. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Ummilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurube Namaha. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shrimate Ramapada Swami. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirveshesha Shunyavadi Pashatyade Shatarine. Vancha kalpa tarubhyasha kripa sindhu vyayavasha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. So, two different levels of transcendentalists, of yogis, have been described in these analogies that Srila Sukadeva Goswami uses to describe the rainy season in Vrindavan. The first is, in the words of Srila Sukadeva Goswami, the immature yogi, who's still afflicted by desires and attachments. And the other one, so he compares the immature yogi as when small rivers, they come into the big body of water. In this case, the analogy is using an ocean, but also described as a bigger river or a big body of water. So when you have all these tributaries, rivers, they fall into the big body of water, usually creates all this disturbance, waves, and the coloring of the water changes. You know, you see that in the big deltas in the ocean, and also when rivers merge, you know, small rivers merge. So the disturbance is compared that to the mind of the neophyte yogi, who is agitated by all kinds of attachments and desires. And then Srila Sukadeva Goswami talks about these devotees who are adoksha chetasa, who their consciousness is fully focused or fully absorbed in the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And these fully absorbed devotees, they're compared to a mountain that, although is hit by these torrents of rain, the mountain doesn't become at all moved. It's steady. So the mountain is fixed, it's steady. It's fixed in its position. Krishna uses the term of stita pragya in the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita when describing a sage or a yogi of a steady mind. His mind is perfectly steady. It doesn't become disturbed. It doesn't become disturbed by the incessant flows of thoughts or uh, circumstances or desires. It just remains steady, perfectly steady. So stita pragya means the steady mind of an advanced devotee or an advanced yogi. In the sixth chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna goes a little further in describing these two different types of yogi to instruct Arjuna that basically one have to be pretty much aware of one's position, one's level, or one's capacity. Krishna described that there is similar. There is two types of yogi. One who is beginning, and the one who is achieve perfection or achieve, the highest level of practice of yoga. He described that yoga is like a ladder. So there is a beginning, and then you gradually climb to the top of the yoga ladder. The two terms that Krishna uses in the sixth chapter is Yoga Ruruksha and Yoga Rudra. Yoga Rurutsa is the beginning stages of yoga, and Yoga Rudra is the highest stages of yoga. So Krishna says, Arurukshor Muner Yogam, Arurukshor Muner Yogam, Karma Karanan Uchate. So for the neophyte, this Ruruksha, Yoga Ruruksha, for the neophyte yogi, then Karma Karanam, work is to be the means. So one cannot stop work. Let me go back a little bit. The context in which Krishna is answering this, is explaining this to Arjuna, is because Arjuna is trying to understand this principle of working and renunciation. It was a very difficult thing to put together, because renunciation is associated to yoga. In fact, Krishna explains that to be a yogi, you have to be renounced. You have to renounce the pursuit or the desires for sense gratification. That is a basic principle of yoga. The goal is not sense gratification. The goal is self-realization, is elevation of consciousness. So that's right from the offset. So in general, if one doesn't have a proper understanding of the process, then it becomes, in general, when you don't have a good understanding of something, you generalize. You have a general definition without going into the more specific principles. You tend to simplify it in a generic way. So in general, we understand as spirituality as giving up this world, renouncing the world. We hear that sense gratification and spiritual life, they don't go well together. They don't mix. It's an incompatible thing, the opposite things. So naturally, if you're going to be into a spiritual life, you have to give up all this mundane stuff. That is the idea of a spirituality that in general is there. It's a very general understanding. So Arjuna has that difficulty. Arjuna, after confronting the reality of the battlefield of Kurukshetra, he wanted to give up. He wanted to engage in simply his, the spiritual pursuit that he understood was to be renouncing work, renouncing his fighting and working and the thing, because of being educated in Vedic culture, the understanding is this basic principle that all these engagements in the material world, they're all temporary. That the actual reality is a spiritual reality that is eternal. And the goal is just to you gradually move yourself to that position and obtain perfection. So Arjuna, had that sort of general understanding. I have to renounce in order to just dedicate myself into spiritual activities. And Krishna called him a fool, and Arjuna was a little puzzled. And so he presented questions. Krishna started to explain a process of yoga, but at the same time explained to him that he doesn't have to renounce his work, he should carry his work in this process of yoga. So as they go deeper into the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is explaining more and more to Arjuna, what does it mean by that? Because Arjuna have the difficulty of, okay, Krishna, why are you telling me? You're telling me that this process of self-realization, the process of becoming Krishna consciousness, is the real thing, is the purpose of life. Then why are you asking me at the same time to go and fight this ghastly war? I don't understand. Please explain. This doesn't seem compatible. How can you, while being engaged into this mundane stuff, can be in a Krishna conscious, in Krishna consciousness? So, when it comes to this part, the 6th chapter, Krishna basically concludes this whole part of the Bhagavad Gita that goes from chapter 1 to chapter 7, or to chapter 6, and explains to Arjuna that renunciation, what's real renunciation? Real renunciation means that you just renounce this pursuit for sense gratification. And it doesn't necessarily mean you have to renounce work. You can work without that goal. You work, or whatever you do in yoga, the goal is to obtain, or to link again, to obtain that ultimate connection with the absolute truth. So he comes to explain to Arjuna that first, okay, renunciation is necessary, but renunciation doesn't mean to give up work. Renunciation means to give up the desires for sense gratification. So you can work or you can be renounced, and the principle still remains the same. Because if you don't have the principle, then you could be renouncing work and still holding some desires of sense gratification or selfish desires. And that's not that highest platform of yoga, because you can become agitated. You can still be afflicted. So then Krishna explains that then there is these two levels. There's a level of a practitioner of yoga that is still not pure, that is still has desires and have attachments, but have started the process of yoga, meaning that you start to follow rules and regulations, follow certain principles that allow you to curb these desires, to control them, and to gradually elevate yourself in the process of purification and becoming free from the influence of these desires. So that's a yoga ruruksha process. So Krishna says, for one who is neophyte in the eightfold of yoga, in this case, Krishna is explaining this Ashtanga yoga. But the principles of yoga are equally applied to the different process of yoga. In this case, we're talking about here dhyana yoga, but also to karma yoga, also to bhakti yoga, to jnana yoga. All these things apply, it's the same principle apply. The process is meant for self-realization. So, Krishna tells Arjuna that for those who are neophyte, that is still afflicted, you can still be a yogi. And for them, work is said to be the means. So you have to work. You have to work. And then he says, for one who is already elevated in yoga, yoga rudashya tashaiva shamak karanan uchate. Then cessation of work, cessation of activity is said to be the means. So when you're free from material desires and from attachments, then you can stop working. Then renunciation, full renunciation, or there's the manifestation of giving up work in this world is possible at that stage. So a yogi that is in this stage can choose, because it's in that position, it can completely renounce the world and enter into a process of just self-absorption. In the Ashtanga yoga process, is eightfold Ashta Anga. Ashta means eight, Anga means fold, so limbs. So in the process of Ashtanga yoga, there is this start with yama and niyama, then asan, pranayam, then there is, I think, is dharana, and there's different levels of meditation. Dharana, I can't remember. Dhyan. If I'm missing one. So there's three once we pass the pranayama, which is the breathing exercise. So yama and niyama means rules and regulations, the do's and don'ts. Then asan, you start to practice the sitting postures or the different postures of yoga. And pranayam is very much connected to the mind. With pranayam, with the controlling of the airs, you start to control the mind, and then you can start into the meditation levels. And there's different levels of meditation, all leading to samadhi. So, similarly, as you reach, this level of samadhi, full absorption, then the advanced yogi can fully renounce the world and enter into this, what is called bhajan, or this very self-absorbed meditation, or can remain working for the benefit of others, to show by example. To show by example. Continue involving themselves in the world. So both as sannyasis or renunciants, but one type of sannyasi preaches for the benefit of others, for the benefit of showing example. And also, we have a great personalities. Krishna speaks earlier in the 3rd chapter of the example of Janaka Maharaj, who was in such position of self-absorption, but remained as a king, performing his duties for the benefit of others. But the principle is that there's these two levels. When one comes from the position of beginning, and then we have to come to the highest stage of yoga practice, which is this full absorption, this adokshaya cetasa, that one's consciousness is fully absorbed in the Supreme Lord. So, for us, so then Krishna tells Arjuna, you are in this yoga ruruksha, because you're still afflicted by. The reality is that Krishna is teaching is for us. Krishna is engaging Arjuna, his dear devotee, to help us, to give us for the purpose of giving us this instruction. Because the majority of people in this world, conditioned souls, are in this position of being afflicted by material desires and attachments. That is a definition of, that's why we're in this world. If we are free from material attachments and desires, we don't supposed to be in this world. But when we come to this material world, it's because we're trying to fulfill a desire. Krishna says that in the Gita, what is it? Ichcha dvesha samutena. We originally come to this world with this ichcha and dvesha, which is hate and desire. So we want something, we want Krishna's position, we want the experience, we want to be Krishna. And therefore we hate Krishna. Very heavy. The actual reality that brings us into this material world. So, conditioned souls, for conditioned souls, this is the path. Every single human being is meant to be a yogi. In fact, yoga is the process, the natural process for human beings. Everybody is meant to be a yogi. So for those who have attachments, then here's the process. You work. You work in devotion without the purpose or the desire to enjoy the fruits of your work. So we learn the process of yajna. The process of yajna that Krishna gives for those as, yogis is that sacrifice. This yajna is meant to be enjoyed and offered to the Supreme Lord. So it's a perfect system, and actually it's not saying the perfect, it is the system. In the Ishopanishad, it is explained that there's no alternative for this system. The Ishopanishad calls this system the Ishavasya system. There's no alternative. There's no alternative for human society and human beings but this system. So these two levels are there. So one is, okay, we still become afflicted. We still become agitated. So the minds of the neophyte yogi is described that still there's agitation. But in comparison, when you reach that position of a steadiness that doesn't anything move you, any danger, any conflicts, any difficulties disturbs your devotional service. When we're neophyte, anything that circumstances can disturb our practices. And therefore, in the neophyte stages, our devotional service is called Anishtata Bhakti. Anishtata means it's unsteady. You go into peaks and valleys. And that's according to the flow, the interactions of your desires and attachments with the world. We go into this Anishtata Bhakti. But if we practice, if we follow the process, which is what is here, Krishna explained this process of working in devotion. If you follow the process, what is given to us is this bhajana kriya and anartha nivritti, or sadhana bhakti. In the terms of Ashtanga Yoga, is this nyama and niyama, rules and regulations. So if we follow this process, we become purified. And as we become purified, basically, our faith becomes more and more steady. So from this Anishtata Bhakti, we come to the position of Nishta Bhakti, which means is the next stage. It becomes steady. Our devotion becomes steady. And then keeps growing and growing and growing until it becomes fully free from any trace of material desires and attachments. So from Nishta goes to Ruchi, and from Ruchi goes to what is it? Asakti, and from Asakti goes to Baba, and from Baba goes to Prema. So these are, when you go to Prema, then there's no trace. You're perfectly pure. And you're perfectly absorbed. In the others, there's small chances of fall down, but still you could fall down. Even from the Baba, we hear the example of Maharaj Bharat, who failed from this position of Baba. which is a high, very elevated position of absorption and connection with the Supreme Lord. But this is the analogies, just highlighting or comparing the experience of the rainy season in Vrindavan to these two different levels of yoga practice. Any comments or questions? Naveen, you're going to check this microphone is not sounding. Try it. Bar. Does it have a red button? It should be number 1. Then check inside that at the 2 on. Yeah, the 2 are on. Does it have the red, the green light? Okay, 1 second.
Hare Krishna. In terms of the Isha Vasya principle, for practitioners of other quote unquote religions of the world, is it that they practice their religion a certain way so they will obtain or attain a different destination, or they will not attain any destination, or any number of possibilities, like you mentioned Ishavasya principle is the only sort of progression for devotees. So in light of that, could you give some? Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Because it's a principle, is universally applied. The Ishavasya principle, Ishavasya Idan Sarvan, what is it? Ishavasya Idan Sarvan, Yat Kincha Bhagyatam Jagat, Tiena Tyaktena Bunchita, what is it? Matgata, So, but in gen, what it says, the principle is that one have to understand that first, that there is God. First thing, there is a supreme being. Isha is the supreme controller. And that supreme controller is the owner of everything. Everything belongs to him. The whole universe, the whole cosmic manifestation belongs to him. And then the other principle is this Tiena Tyaktiena Bunchita. That for each one of us, God is providing. And He's provide a particular quota. We all have a quota. That God is maintaining all living entities. He's the maintainer and the protector. And each one of us is providing something. And the whole principle is that is all perfect. There's no, it's exactly perfect, completely perfect what God provides. And that's in the introduction verse in the Upanishad. That is, what is it? How's it, the beginning? The introduction verse of the Upanishad. Yeah. Om Purnan Adapurnam Idam. Purnam Purnan Udachate Purnashan Purnam Adaya Purnam Evan Vashishate. That everything that comes from Him is complete, and everything that comes from Him is perfectly complete. So everything that He does is perfect and complete. So what He's giving us is perfect and complete. Individually is perfect and complete. So we don't have to look to the side and say, oh, actually, I would prefer to have that quota than this my quota. You know, why this person have a better quota than mine? We don't have to analyze. The quota for this person is perfect. The quota for my person is perfect. If I have the quota of someone else, it will be a disaster for my life. It won't work. It won't give us the desire. We won't be in this Ishabasha principle. We will be in something else, which is what the Upanishad defines as avidya, the process of avidya. The process of avidya, you have these two processes, vidya and avidya. Vidya means that you don't have connection and you don't follow by ignorance, you don't follow this Ishabasha principle. And vidya means that you follow the Ishabasha principle. So this Ishabasha principle is embedded in all religions. It's the essence of religion. Now, that in some religious process, this Ishabasha process is not followed, that's not a reflection of the religious process. That's a reflection of the practitioners. Because even in our tradition, we can also be so-called practicing, Vaishnavism or Gaudiya Vaishnavism, and still being ignorant and neglectful of this Ishabasha principle and be afflicted by this avidya. So the process is embedded, it's universal. It should be accessible to a certain degree. And as the person goes deep, Prabhupada explains that Krishna leads them to something higher and higher and higher. And the highest thing is Krishna says, the yoginana pisharvesham, those who fully come to the position of bhakti. What is it? Adoksha chetasa. That's the ultimate thing. So it should lead you to that because it's a universal principle if they actually follow. Is that clear?
Hare Krishna. So thank you for that answer. But I was just going to say that in some ways, Srila Prabhupada did establish Varna Ashram Dharma then because he gave the knowledge about it in his book. Like there has been a statement that he said that he was not able to establish Varna or Ashram. But if these are universal principles, then they exist even without our applying them. As long as we are educated about it and we can educate others about it, I guess. Okay.
Yeah, that's a good observation. And is everything, Prabhupada say, everything that you need to know is in my books. So it's there. We just need to, apply it. So it's not, in conversation with Prabhupada sometimes say, it's not possible. Sometimes say it's possible, It was because of us. So, you know, so at the end, is part of our service to being able to fully apply, Prabhupada's teachings, because those are the teachings that will lead this golden age within Kali Yuga for the next 10,000 years that fulfill Lord Chaitanya's purpose. So it's all there in Srila Prabhupada's books, and he is the preeminent acharya of the age of Kali because of that.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, thank you for your class. You were mentioning Krishna was encouraging Arjuna to think of him even on the battlefield. And that's the point that really highlighted it to me, because we see all the great saints think of Krishna in the most horrible, difficult conditions. And as far as this verse is concerned, one thing that came to mind is Jitendra, ever since I've been in Christian consciousness associated with him, he will always say two phrases. There's a difference between devotional service and commotional service. Now, this verse uses the analogy of a mountain. The one thing that came to mind, I'm not sure if you heard the English phrase, making a mountain out of a molehill. That means people make problems seem bigger than they actually are. But we see that the great saints who engage in devotional service, they make molehills out of mountains. And we see the great sinners, they make mountains out of molehills. They make problems seem bigger than they actually are. Prahlad was thrown off a mountain. And he was like, he had no animosity towards his father. He says it's no big deal. But we see in the pastime like Devananda Pandit in the Chaitanya Bhagavad, I believe, Madhya Khan, chapter 21. Devananda Pandit was a celibate monk who gave Bhagavatam his entire life. He had a school. He would teach Bhagavatam class to young students. One day, Srivas Thakur heard the Bhagavatam from outside. He entered the class. When he sat back in the back of the class, he was crying. He was sighing. He was so in love with the Bhagavatam. But Devananda Pandit, he was disturbed. He was like, who is this nuisance causing a problem? He loves Bhagavatam too much. Let's get rid of him. So the students grabbed him by the hands and legs and literally threw him outside of Bhagavatam class. And Lord Chaitanya, it's a long story, winded up blasting him for that, criticizing him. And we see this is the pastime. By contrast, we see that Prahlad was at the wrong place, at the wrong time, with the wrong person. But because he had the right mentality, love, humility, forgiveness, he was always content. Devananda Pandit, he was associated with Srivas Thakur, one of the members of the Panchatattva. He was at the right place, at the right time, with the right person. But because he had the wrong mentality, intolerance, something that's like so petty, somebody who loved Bhagavatam, he was like, let's get rid of him. And that's our situation. So my question is that how do we keep things in perspective? Because it seems in Kali Yuga, we always find some problem. Like we could go to Syria, we could go to Iraq, we could even go to the west side of Chicago and find so much more problems. But that's a tendency, is that how can we keep things in perspective where things can actually be much worse? But there's always, some complaint about something. So how can we deprogram ourselves to be more grateful for devotees and actually say, any association, this is a complete blessing. I'm so fortunate, instead of complaining all the time. Thank you.
Well, it's a natural principle to as you get to appreciate um, and absorb yourself and commit yourself to the process of devotional service, um, and as we go in the process of devotional service, that we become um, purified, you naturally start to become open and more open and appreciate, have a much a better and better clarity and capacity to see reality. And when we do that, then we start to appreciate more and recognize those who are also endeavoring for the same goals. So if we apply the process, we can see that we also cleaning ourselves. We can appreciate this Omagyana Timirandasya, that I was actually completely blinded. I was in a very bad situation. And because of the mercy of a devotee, now I have a chance. So I'm becoming cleansed, I'm becoming purified. So when I maintain that position and that thinking, then I can become, I can have empathy and I can have understanding and tolerance of other devotees who are also going through the process of purification, and therefore appreciate. Here is another, a courageous soul that is trying to break from, that is that making an attempt. If you see devotees uh, that are consistently holding to the community, the association of devotees, even by being afflicted by their conditions, material conditions. Just because these devotees they have some attachment and attraction to Krishna, to the community, to the temple, you have to sort of appreciate that part and uh, in one sense sees, that, okay, this devotee is in the shower, I'm in the shower. We're not here considering, okay, who's more dirty than the other one. You know, I mean, if you're in the shower and cleansing yourself, then that's very good. That's what Prabhupada would tell someone who criticizes his disciples. Why are you criticizing someone by someone being dirty when the person is in the shower cleansing themselves? So we learn to appreciate that. We learn to appreciate devotees because that shows that we're appreciating what devotional service does to us. If we take it for granted, if we um, have this superficial approach to it, then that means that we're very immature. But that is just that. It's immaturity. And an immature state is meant to mature gradually. So, we all understand it's just a process. It's just what it is. I'm going through, someone is going through, maybe someone is, is more, the bud is just very fresh and young, and this bud is a little more open, but, and then some bud is a little more, and then, and naturally the bud, if it's in the proper space, hearing and chanting like that, naturally will open and eventually will fully uh, become a flower. So we appreciate that. We appreciate people who are uh, holding to the path of devotional service somehow or other when being engaged. Okay, thank you so much, Prabhus, Matajis. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Garantara Sriman Bhagavatam ki jai.